Friends, welcome to another episode of Auto Afflicted. Today, a little something special, a little something different. We're going to drop in on a podcast related to my past history as a professional snowboarder. A lot of y'all probably don't know, but I did a 10-year stint as a professional snowboarder, and during that period of time, I was pushing car culture and snow culture together, and it's just a really special formative time in my life that led me to the YouTube channel here and Auto Afflicted Garage. So without further ado, we're going to dive into a little bit of that history right now.
Created some cool pro models that were like super, the graphics were driven by me and curated by my friends. I actually brought those.
We'll just throw them on the screen as you talk about them. That's probably easier.
Cool.
We'll just take a picture.
So the Joyride stuff, like, I only actually ended up with like maybe 2 or 3 of these models myself because I'd already started riding for Ride during this, as soon as these boards were basically hitting retail. But so I had the larger board, which I guess you'll see here in the screen, but I'll describe it for those that also are listening. It was the 155 size sort of backcountry model, and my friend Aaron Hawkins had he'd come up with the concept of this graphic, which was essentially on the top is sort of like links, like a chain link, like a necklace link. And within the links were images of like inside my house and my car and just things that were part of my life. And then on the tail was he'd had me handwrite like some DJ sets, because I was making a lot of mixtapes. And so, I'd have all the, the different record and the single and all this stuff written down. And so it's got like this whole DJ set on my tail. And then the bass he'd pulled from a Technics 1200, which is a high-end record player that DJs use. He'd pulled a diagram, and it had this weird fuse or resistor, and he'd put my name near it. But the whole thing, he called it the schematics of life. And it was just kind of this cool curated board that graphically I thought was pretty rad. It was my first pro model, so I was like, oh, cool, this is awesome. And then the other one, which was totally like in line with my Audi fetish, I'd worked with Galen Justice, Sweet Needles, good buddy of mine, and he had helped create a caricature of my Audi Coupe, which is the Audi that I had modified, and that was featured on the base of the snowboard. And then the top sheet had this wheel by this company HRE, which they make custom car wheels. And anyways, it was just like a deep dive into what I was into at that time.
Wow, that was such a great description.
Yeah, I forgot Sweet Needles did that too. That's dope.
Yeah.
Well, on this car talk, we happen to have a guest question from none other than, we'll call him Super Agent / legendary snowboarder Ninja.
Nice. The
Here we
Ninja.
Hey, BombHole and Ali.
Hey.
Ninja here. Couple questions for you, bud. First one, who got you into Audis and when? And second question, do you wish you would have bought another house instead of that coupe back in the day?
Right. Classic. Ninja coming through with the questions. Actually, so it was, it was very much Ninja and J2 and Adam Ehrman that got me into Audis. Choose had like a wagon that was pretty well built, and Ninja actually got this Goulet, which was a Mitsubishi. It was a turbocharged 4-wheel drive thing. And then I think Adam, he had the money at the time, so he had an A4, which was new car. But so, those guys, basically their love of cars was the continuing catalyst. Like as a young kid, I thought rally racing was cool. My dad had an 88 Audi Coupe Quattro. So I had some experience with it, but my dad wasn't into cars, or, I wasn't, beyond Matchbox cars. It wasn't like a thing. But so it was really those guys that kind of pushed it. And, like, I guess like you do when you're enthusiastic, like the first thing I did, because it was the first thing I could afford, was bought a little car, a Volkswagen GTI from Ninja himself. And that was my car. And these Volkswagens have like 100 horsepower or something. So I'm like, oh, what should I do? I'll put a turbo on it. So then we spent like 10 grand putting a turbo on it to try to make it as fast as their Audis. And, you know, eventually I just end up buying an Audi and then buying the right Audi and then putting $40,000 into that. But I guess it was those guys' fault. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Part two of his question. Do you wish you had bought a house instead?
Well, so I did buy a house.
A second house, he said. He specifically said a second
right,
house.
Yeah. So, I mean, no.
No?
I would like to say that, like my current vibe with cars right now is that I like to buy cars that are fully depreciated and sometimes undervalued and never lose money and only make money and do whatever I do with them. But, you know, if you want a specific car and you want it a specific way, you're probably going to pay for it. And I feel like if you have the money, it's worth every penny, because it's, you know, even if I'm going to sell it for 12 grand later and it's worth 30 or 40 grand now, you still have to find that person to buy it, you know, and ultimately it's for the enjoyment. So I don't know. Not that everyone gets it. You know, people are like, why would you waste all that money on your car? And it's like, well,
your passion.
It's a passion and an enjoyment, you know, and you have to just chalk that up. Like I don't do that now because also I'm, you know, got responsibilities. I got 2 kids. Like, can't waste money on cars, but I can play cars just with a different approach.
I love that too. And I think there's 2 differences between buying a nice car to fill an insecurity or, you know, to fill some type of void, and being really passionate about cars and loving the culture and loving, how do you mod it? What wheels am I going to put on it? How am I going to make it faster? Every little detail of the car gets tweaked. Like, that's a whole different deal than, well, I'm going to go buy a nice car so I, you know, fill this deep void that is unfulfillable. But
yeah. And I mean, like anything else, it's like a craft, or, you know, it can be considered art. I think, you know, like I built my Audi with a very specific idea. Like everything I do, it's very specific. And I also wanted it to be in a car magazine, and we achieved that. And that was when, you know, your car magazine, they don't just take everybody's car, because you only put out so many mags. And so, you know, I don't know. I did this thing that I set out to achieve, and I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Also, car culture was big in snowboarding back then, because there was Dumped and Kitted.
Right.
That was a little set. Was that Transworld?
Yep. That was in Transworld.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. Like, the thing is this trickle of people that were into cars that, you know, infiltrated the mag. So, like, Cody Dresser went to the mag, Transworld Snowboarding. He was like, oh, we should start doing something on cars within the industry. And I want to say my Mazda 323 rally car was the first kickoff of Dumped and Kitted, but I might be wrong on that one. But Dumped and Kitted was the car being dumped down low, like on suspension, and kitted is like, you know, you put a body kit on it. And I want to say that I helped Cody like put that whole idea together, but he would allow me to do this thing called Ollie Disses Your Whip, which was kind of fun, because I'm super opinionated. Even though I like to put out a, you know, positive energy mostly, I also like to poke fun at stuff and be a little bit of a dick. And so, you know, someone would have their car on and I would just try to say something funny about it. Like Peter Lyon had his Escalade with big chrome rims and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh man, it looks like Master P has the same skin condition as Michael Jackson. Oh no, it's Peter Lyon. Like, that's more of a dig on him than his car, but his car only had so many things wrong with it. But anyway, it was just fun. And yeah, there was a lot of car culture within snowboarding. And I mean, I would like to say that, you know, I helped continue to push that on. Like, obviously I got it from Twos and Merriman and those guys and Cody, those guys that were already into it. And I continued it. But, you know, like I was saying, through my snowboarding and, you know, on my snowboards, and I was pushing hard all the time to try to get like the Audi name out there specifically, because I really wanted to try to get that sponsorship or get some connection with Audi. And, you know, so I had, you know, the 4 rings on my board. I've got, you know, ride posters. I'm wearing an Audi hat. Like I'm putting it out there everywhere. And, but I wanted it bad, and it never came to fruition because I didn't have like, you know, what Todd Richards, he went to the Olympics. So now you're an Olympian. So you got that level, you know, to lean on. But, you know, just thinking about Audi and like the culture and the continuations of all that, like I got to hand it to Ken Block, who's like living my dream right now and really doing it in the best way, because we both share this affinity for the early Audi, like the rally culture and what Audi did with 4-wheel drive, and his whole new contract is like specifically older Audi cool stuff and then electric. And electric's cool and all, but the Audis he gets to touch are like the ones that basically turned me on to Audi and car culture. And anyway, Ken, if you're listening, give me a ride in one of your cars.
Love that. Going back, one thing that sticks out specifically on that was, I remember, I think it's Brainstorm, you nose blunt or like kind of lip slide fakie a concrete ledge, and there's so clear the Audi logo on your board. And I think that was the poster.
Oh, yeah.
But I also think, because I remember seeing that in the mags when I was a kid too, but I also wanted to kind of talk about that too, just as a transition. Basically, you guys were some of the first, I would say, like in the Whitey videos, it was Mikey, you, and Whitlake were kind of the original guys I've seen sliding concrete ledges.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know. That always stuck out to me like that. Above now, I go back, I think the chicanes and the back rodeos and the switchback threes are the sickest. But when I was a kid, I remember being infatuated with you guys sliding down gritty concrete ledges.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting, because I know, from that era, like people are like, oh, God, you're going to jump on that concrete ledge. Like, I'd rather jump on some metal or something.
And so there you go, friends. A little insight into my auto affliction, what I used to do, and what makes me tick. A little aside about the whole Ken Block mention. So at this time during the filming of this podcast, which was like 3 years ago, Ken Block was still with us. And I actually had a little bit of a connection with Ken through sponsorship. So he had a company at one point called Dub Outerwear, and Dub sponsored me as a snowboarder for 3 or 4 years. And so while I didn't have a tight relationship with Ken, we had some interactions. The cool thing is that he did actually watch the BombHole, and he reached out to me on my episode in particular. He invited my son Ethan and I up to what was HRD, Hoonigan Racing Division at the time, which is not far from our house. And he showed us around the facilities, showed us the Hoonatron, a little sneak peek of the Gymkhana. I forgot which. It was Gymkhana 10 maybe, where he did the Hoonatron in Vegas. But anyway, whole point is Ken was just such a great guy, and for sure he's going to be missed. And we are all thankful to him for exposing the whole car culture to that much more of the world. But anyway, I thank you all for checking out the episodes as ever. And you know how it goes, friends. Be kind to those around you. Love the ones you're with. Use your signals when you're driving. And we'll catch you on the next one.